Hello, my friend. Hopefully that you are doing great. So in this lesson, I want to share you one more thing, how to group your test cases to be some test suits. Okay, so as I mentioned before, so in your test, you may have several types of tests. For example, you have something like smart test, sanity test, regression test, uh, integration test, and so on. That depends on how your project structured and depends on the way your project is managed, the quality of the software, the release or something like that. But basically, you have something like smart test and regression test. They are, common type of tests that you want to have in automation tests, right? So, for example, you have a list of test cases here on the left side, and you want to group them to be something like related to the test type, the test level, something like that. So, for example, you want to have the login with correct credential should be in smart test because before you release, you need to make sure the main functionality should work properly. Something like login, logout, something like create, update, delete, or something like that. So you can group those test cases into smart test, and all the ones you can group them into regression test. So regression test is something like after you develop some function and then you integrate to the system, that is the time that you want to run the whole test suite, hundreds or thousands, it depends. And we call it a regression test to make sure that the new feature doesn't break any existing features. Okay. So now in the test suite here, you just need to create a new folder and okay, I think let me try to see. New test suite, we don't need to have a new folder here. So under test suite, we create a new test suite, and the first one will be smart or smart test, anyone. So here I can create a new test suite here, and we can call it this regression. Okay. So here in the smart test, we can have something like this is smart test, okay? And then what I want to do that I will assign something like, login correct credential to this switch, like I will create the add button, and then you can see here we have a dialog here, and it's automatically display all of the test cases that we already have on the system. So in this case, I want to select something like login with correct credential because I think that login correct credential should be something in the smart test level. Okay, I hit the OK button here. And then you can see that test case is now under the smart test suite. Okay, so if I open the regression test here and then I will select for something like test iframe or login with incorrect credential or something like that. I hit the OK button. So we have two test cases here under the regression test and one test case under smart test. Okay, and then after that I hit the save all button here. Now what I want to do that I will try to run the regression test, something like that. And then after I select the test suite on the left side, I hit the run button here. So basically it will run one by one. Okay. So it will run, let's see, what is the first time, the first run. The first run is the test iframe. So after the test iframe completed, it will run the next one. In this case is login with incorrect credential. Yep. So all of the test case is passed, and then you can click on the results here. I don't know why it doesn't display here. Okay, here. So when you click on the results here, we can see the test iframe is passed, and the execution time is around 14 seconds, and this one is nearly 8 seconds. Okay, so this is the main, and you can do the same for smart test as well. So there's one thing I wanna make sure that you understand something related to global variable before that I already mentioned. So global variable is something that we can use in many scope in the test cases or in the test suite. So in this case, if you look on the right top here, you can see smart test execution profile is already selected by default because we set it as the default profile. But what if, for example, I select the regression test here, and then after that, I change to default, and then I run the test again to see what will happen. Now you can see the test iframe is run first now, and you can see it failed. This one failed again. So if you click on the result here, maybe this is the old one, I think. Yeah, the new one is now refreshed. So you can see it's failed because we selected the default execution, profile execution, and basically there is nothing inside. But in our, you can see in our tests, the cases that you already learned about in the previous lesson, I mean, you can see we are using some global variable. So please pay attention. When you select something to run, you need to make sure that you select the correct execution profile. So in this case, you select the smart test profile. And in this smart test execution profile, we already declare something related to the staging URL or something like that. So this is something staging URL, but because you want to use something like in your test script, you will use something like, the URL only. So I would suggest you to change it to something general like the testing URL. So in the case you create a new profile here, you just put something like the testing URL again, and even you switch the execution profile here, it will not affect to your test, it will not affect to your global variable values. Okay, so let me try to summarize before we finish the lesson. So test suite is the way we group many test cases into one type of the test level. So in this case, we have smart test level and regression test level. So if you want to group them, you just, very simple. You hit on the add button here, and then it will show you a dialog. Then you select which test case that you want to assign under this test suite. That's it. And then the second thing, that's when you want to run a test suite, you need to make sure that you select the correct execution profile. Right? Because we have some global variable there. So if you don't select the correct execution profile, in that case, your test will be failed. Okay. So bye for now and see you in the next lesson.